was a lot tighter. Now it feels tight, but it's not too bad. I loosened up the back here and all of a sudden it goes just fine. So we're going to take this off, see if we can shim it or something. Pull this off, and it's just a flat block of metal. You pull it tight to control this. Problem is, these are going to loosen, and this really needs to be adjusted and shimmed and locked in place. Oh look, these are the 3 screws holding it in. These are compensating screws. That didn't come with the lathe. We'll go find some. So I grab a couple of M6 set screws and we'll screw them in the back all the way through until they stick up a little bit, both sides. See the blade? We'll screw this on with the original Allen head bolts it came with. So when I tighten all 3 of these, I still have too much play. We'll loosen the Allen set screws. Let's figure 1, 2 turns. 1, 2. Now we'll tighten this up again. All the play's gone. I didn't even tighten those. So we're going to go each Allen screw. I'm going to bring it out a half a turn. Half turn here. Half turn here. That's pulling the Allen screws down so we can push this plate up. Let's check it again. That's actually pretty good. To do the front side, it's all behind this piece. We should take this piece off. That way we can get at it. You know those screws aren't going to be in there, so it's going to have to be done. This half nut's going to be a pain in the rear. We'll probably have to take it all apart. This half nut, to remove it, means readjusting the little V-plate in there. There might be another way. I'm going to take this off and try to slide this out of the way to set that. Take these 2 out. So obviously it's not going to come off because that nut's going to come off. Lock the half nut and it holds it. Take this nut off. Release the half nut, and now, oh look, there's bearings in there and they're dry. There's no lube on them. Notice, pay attention to how all the washers are set up. There's no lube on those bearings. Okay, so now if we take this off, it's kind of funny how it's got all this rust preserver on it, but most of it just needed to be lubed up. Okay, with the half nut loose and that missing, we can take this off. As I suspected. Take your time. Wow, that's built way better. Just everything's way better than the 7X14 Mini Lathe. We're going to take this little block off from underneath. Okay, this last bolt is obviously for some sort of locking mechanism, because that's all it does is pull on this. Problem is, oh, I see it's cut. So if you pull this up, it's going to lock. Or that's the intention anyway. Let's go ahead and put the set screws in here. We're going to remove this. We'll worry about that after we get these adjusted. I'll set this back up underneath. The 6mm Allen set screws up until they touch, like we did on the other side, which is right there, just till they touch. Not going to tighten them. Okay, so now we check. Do we have blade? No. Does it turn pretty? Ooh, that's pretty good. Just right there. I kind of like that. Okay, so we got the carriage to slide just right. And there's no play at all on the back. There's no play here. Maybe just a tiny bit on this end, but that's as close as I can get it. Next, we're going to do this nut right here is actually a lock. Pretty simple. It's just slides free, and if we lock this down, it does not. So all we really need is free lock. This is long enough. Free lock. Free. So all I need to do is cut this here and set it in there. That's the Allen wrench that I cut. I cut the long end off. I used the cut-off tool, air die grinder type with a cutting disc. Hacksaw's not going to work on hardened steel. Think maybe grind it with your grinder, regular bench grinder, notch it on both sides, snap it off, and then grind it smooth. This is now really smooth. Never had a lathe like that besides something that was really expensive. So put it in, lock to make a cut, unlock to move this way. So we'll slide this on. These Allen bolts came with no washers. A nice head bolt style washer would be good. I'm not going to do it right now. I got to get this machine. I got to order for this, so I got to get this going. Leave this loose so that this can go back and forth until you get this on. In case you didn't notice, I had this on backwards. I had to flip it over. Everything was binding. Still had to put the two washers on this side. This nut is adjustment of end plate of this rod. I moved it that way to line up the gears on the other side. So if you tighten this up by hand until the play's gone, hold this and tighten the Allen at the end. That's how you lock the end plate adjustment on the lead screw. That's nice. You don't get that on the little mini lathes. Next, we want to make this work nice and smooth, and it works smooth if it's loose. Of course, it can't be loose. If I tighten either one of these, and it's realistically about smooth with the outside edge. If I tighten this, this won't work right. If I tighten this, I get the same thing. Not as bad, but it's there. So I tried this shim stock. I tried this shim stock. It's even thicker. If you don't have shim stock, think about breaking apart one of your old feeler gauges, if you have those. It's still too much with that in there. I'm going to try I'd like to have this kind, but I don't. Oh, I have this. I'm going to try this. It's the same thickness as that little one, so that's not going to actually make it, but maybe we can double it up and see where we come out at. We'll slide it in and etch it. Let's cut this square off first. Now we'll try two pieces and see what happens. Still gets tight. Now remember, this one's got a different position. It tends to want to come up all the way. I got this tight with no shim. But if I tighten this, oh, look at that. There you go. This tight, set this whole thing this way, I think it's going to work. Let me cut the rest of that. I got two of these now. We'll tighten this. We'll take this out. We'll slide them in. That looks nice. And we'll mark them. That'll work. Then I'll cut these out. I think I'll slot them so I can take them in and out. Just cut them with a pair of tin snips. And at a slight angle coming in. Then I'll grasp this in a vise and grasp this with needle nose, fold it back and forth, and then I'll tap it smooth with a small ball peen. Like that. Loosen it up again. Slide them in. I hope they fit. Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Just kind of put a little pressure on them at first. Oh, snug it up a bit at a time. I hope it's like that. Oh yeah, that's beautiful, just like that. It's a little rattle there. Let's try moving it in or out a little bit. I'm gonna move this one out. No, we're not. We're gonna move this one out. Actually, we're gonna move it in. Worse. Put it out as far as it'll go. Worse. No, I just kind of wanted to center. Let's try locking this. And then tightening it up a little bit at a time. Just let it fall in where it wants to go. Unlock. Oh, beautiful. It's just like butter. Man, these are going to be beautiful lathes when they're dialed in. Next up is play on the forward backward slide. It's not bad. I'm just going to tighten it up a little bit. Move it to the center, which would be right where this is flush. And then, actually there's almost no play, but I think we can get a little bit more. There's a little play there too. We'll have to do that one as well. Take that off. I bet the angle is way underneath here. Let me take this thing off, this whole thing. Okay, we loosened up the gimbal, took out the slide, just unscrewed this, and here's why it's binding. If you watch real carefully, this is bent a little bit. See it? We're gonna have to work on that. But first we're gonna do this. Okay, reset these. Oil these. And it's running pretty good now. Something I want to point out, this has all the actual oil points that a big lathe has for all the rails, and they're all working. Not only are they all working, all this stuff is machined so much better than the little 714 lathes. It's way better. This is your angle. There's a dial back here too. It's pretty nice. It's on the wrong side, but I'll take this off and get a better look. There's a lot of rust preserve. Oh yeah, we got to clean that up. That's a mess. Okay, I oiled this up so it turned free, but there's a problem. This dial is just kind of set in this groove, which would be pretty good if it was fastened right, but the machine work is incorrect. There's something pushing it up. When I push this on here, it hits this end. So I either got to cut that end off or fix that problem. The metal plate is kind of loose. Let's see if we can lift it up. Like that. And It looks like the flaw is just this piece right here is made wrong. We'll clean that out and maybe grind that off and re-glue it. I ground off that extra end, and it almost sits in there, but it's loose. I better still, it almost worked just the way it is, but let me try putting it in with a little epoxy. I'll get it all cleaned up oil-free. Okay, it's cleaned off. Believe it or not, I'm going to use this heat sink glue for setting heat sinks. You know, it's actually incredible stuff. About a year ago, my wife's pendant stones, semi-precious stones, kept falling off, her trinket bracelets. She needed something fast. I used this and they're still on there, so it worked better than all the other glue I was using in the past. We'll try this one, see what happens. Overnight. I'm just leaving it at this angle for now. That way that can't back out like it did in the past. I kept having problems with this. No matter how I set it, it would bind. So I put this on a straight edge and it was bent. I just straightened it. We'll see what happens when I put it back together. Just straightening this alone was not enough. I ran it across the surface grinder and resurfaced it. This was also, I resurfaced all the large flats on the surface grinder, and I did the dovetails by hand. We'll see how it comes out. Well, it took a while, but I kept resetting these and adjusting them until I got a nice smooth operation with almost no plate, and then I drilled this, tapped it, and made a little lock for this. This is going to be very important to be able to lock all these pieces. So this one locks, this one locks. I should make this one lock too. Let me look into that. Because I have a customer waiting on a motor mod for this, I'm going to bypass the cross slide lock for now. I installed the compound slide, and this still doesn't work right. So I take this off, tighten this up, and this works fine. Nice and smooth. It's not that shaft. Then I look at this, there's no thrust bearing in here. This is missing a critical component. This just slides off. There's no set anywhere on this either. So if you're trying to count digits, this is going to move. You're not going to be able to count digits. This piece is machine faulty. 8.8 on this side, and it's 9.6 on this side, almost a whole millimeter thicker on this side. This is rubbing right there. That's where it's sticking. And the nut is too short. This is too thick. I resurfaced this piece first in the milling machine to true it as best as possible, and then on the belt grinder. It's now 8.3 to 8.4 millimeters any direction. Not perfect, but pretty darn close. We'll get that installed and go from there, see what we get. So I resurfaced this. I fit this with 2 metal washers, one's a pressure washer. I resurfaced this so it run true on here. We gave up on the little dial thing, it's too big anyway. This is supposed to have a little spring steel in it. That's what holds it in place. It was missing. We're going to put it together again and hopefully it'll be smooth. Well, That's as smooth as it's gonna get without thrust bearings in here. Works pretty good going this direction, so I'll concentrate cutting in that direction because it's running against the two steel washers. On the inside, it's still steel against aluminum. This whole thing needs to be redesigned. Something I want to point out. This lead screw is not reversible. The brake lead is going to have a knob here to reverse this direction. The better lathes will. This would be a good lathe if you get that gearbox. I am going to try to reverse it. The reason why is when you engage the lead screw for the automated cut,